before Rosh Hashanah, I read an inspiring Facebook post. It's not an oxymoron, by the way. A rabbinic colleague, United States Air Force chaplain Rabbi Sarah Schechter, wrote about her work. Rabbi Schechter is the Jewish chaplain of Ramstein Air Base in Germany. As some of you know, a rabbi in the armed forces serves the Jewish servicemen and women and everyone else. So as a military chaplain, Rabbi Schechter serves the Jewish personnel and personnel of other faiths. And currently, amidst celebrating the Jewish holidays on her base, she is tirelessly part of something called Team Ramstein, who, in her words, and I quote, have been working all day and night to provide shelter, food, sanitation, clothes, and most of all, hope to tens of thousands of their guests, that is, Afghan refugees, in support of Operation Allied Refuge. Rabbi Schechter writes, as a chaplain, I'm responsible for ensuring for my section of 4,000 people prayer tents for men and women, the call to prayer at designated times, coordination with our imam for halal food, and help in numerous other ways. Rabbi Schechter explained, this is truly terrible and amazing at the same time. The teamwork has been incredible, incredible, incredible. As chaplains, we have set up prayer tents for men and women, announced the call to prayer 5 times a day, ensured halal food, and supported our guests in many other ways. Our imam, Muslim chaplain, is doing an incredible job, and everywhere people are giving with their heart and soul. I read and reread her words many times, messaged her with awe. Indeed, I'm awed and struck by the images, some of you may have seen them in the newspapers, of the tents at Ramstein Air Force Base. Impermanent structures giving safe haven to thousands of refugees fleeing to safety. Those images have traveled with me and certainly stick with me this week as we are in Sukkot. After all, what is a sukkah? It's a shaky tent, sort of, or a structure, if not a tent. It's a temporary dwelling place, reminiscent of those our ancestors lived in crossing the desert to the Promised Land. As one contemporary teacher explains, the sukkah is a temporary structure which we relate to as permanent. We sit in it like we would dwell in our own homes. Each Jew is commanded to eat, sleep, and sit in the sukkah as if it is keva, as if it is fixed, though it is temporary. But why do we dwell in the sukkah? We do so in order to experience what our ancestors did when they fled for refuge, for safe haven. We are to relive their experience, to put ourselves where they were as best we can, and remember that we too were in circumstances fleeing for safety. Rabbi Alan Liu describes a sukkah as a parody of a house. It gives us no real shelter, and it exposes the idea of a house as an illusion. He writes, in the sukkah, a house is open to the world. A house that is open to the world, a house that freely acknowledges that it can't be the basis of security. The illusion of protection falls away, and suddenly we are flushed with life, feeling our life, following our life, doing its dance one step after the other. Anyone here ever sat in a sukkah on a cold night? Anyone ever slept in the rain in a sukkah? Okay, Fallon. Did you sort of wonder why it always rains in Sukkot? Case in point, as you sat and shivered and felt cold to your core. The sukkah challenges us. It challenges us with utter vulnerability, even as it instructs us with strength. Because the sukkah gives us history, it gives us joy, and it gives us community. So we might shiver and hope that our walls don't fall down. Some of us had that happen this week. Its very existence says, here's your history, own it. Our ancestors lived in these shaky structures, and it's your turn to do the same. So as we own our history, the sukkah challenges us to think and act. So first, I invite you to consider your journey to the Sukkah, which I hope will actually happen this evening if it's not raining too hard. How did you get to the Sukkah? There's a beautiful teaching that says we merit Sukkot, this ultimate holiday of joy, after the work of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Think about it. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur cause us to dig deep within, see where we need to apologize, work to mend our ways. Serious stuff. So we take steps to Teshuvah. 5 days later, it says, V'samachta, rejoice, be happy. A mystical text teaches that the intimacy, wisdom, and love of Sukkot are only possible after we sense the smallness of ourselves that we do on high holidays. Joy, this text adds, is brought about by the arrival of our Ushpizin, our mystical guests. Some of you have heard of Ushpizin. We are to invite them into our Sukkah. You can invite live ones too, but traditionally Jews invite the matriarchs, the patriarchs, King David. But you could also invite your own mystical guests, family members, loved ones, friends. Who are your lofty guests? And we literally say in the Sukkah, sit lofty guests, sit holy guests, sit guests of faith. I invite you to think, how did you get to the Sukkah? Who are the people who are lofty in your history? Parents, grandparents, teachers, friends. Who is deeply connected to your soul and your history, who you would invite into the Sukkah? And then we're supposed to feed those guests. Funny thing, right? It's ironic. How do you feed mystical guests? They don't eat. So what is the Sukkah host to do? We're actually commanded to invite the poor to our table, to eat at our table in the Sukkah. Instead of feeding our Ushpizin, since they don't eat, we're to give the portion of food that we would give those guests to those who are physically in need. Think about it. Designate what you would give, what you would do to provide food for others. Designate at least that much and give tzedakah. After all, Sukkot is our harvest holiday. We're supposed to share bounty, leave the corners of the field, leave the gleanings of the fields. Remember that we were strangers in Egypt. The needs of our people and the people of our world are vast. Our opportunities to feed the hungry are many. So this Sukkot, we might look to Germany, to refugees. We might look to the United States border, under bridges. We can look to our own neighborhoods and schools, to our own Jewish community. We can look right out to the parking lot where we have a big collection bin for the Ark. The doors are open to feed the hungry. The command is real, so are the needs. So we are engaged this Sukkot to think about our history, to think about where we came from, to think about those in need, and one more thing, to rejoice. Torah says, take the 4 species, the lulav and the etrog, lift them up, wave them, and rejoice, v'samachta. So I invite you at the end of our service this evening, weather permitting, our Oneg Shabbat will be outside, or at least toward that way, to go to the Sukkah. There are lulavim and etrogim. Pick them up with your 2 hands. I'll come out, help anyone who wants with a blessing, and shake them. Rejoice. Rejoice in the miracles of our history, of our present, and celebrate. Chag Sameach, Moedim L'Simcha. Shabbat Shalom.